Fiorella Passoni, la invitiamo a salire, CEO di Edelman Italia, e Marcus Brown, che è fondatore e anche CEO di Great Pitch Company. Allora vi invito a salire, grazie. Vi spiego anche che cosa succederà nella prossima più o meno mezz'ora. Ci sarà uno speech di Fiorella, che ringraziamo. Io credo che Fiorella... Ecco, ciao Marcus. Nice to meet you and thank you so much for being with us today. Allora, non credo che Fiorella abbia tanto bisogno di presentazioni, perché tra Fiorella e Marcus insieme siamo più o meno intorno a una 60 d'anni di esperienza nel mondo della comunicazione, e quindi non è, diciamo, un dato anagrafico, ma è un dato di esperienza. Questo per dirci che il racconto che sentiremo e poi l'intervista, perché più tardi poi Fiorella farà il mio mestiere, quindi intervisterà Marcus. Siamo pronti ad ascoltarvi e noi ci vediamo più tardi. See you later.
Grazie, buongiorno a tutti, buon pomeriggio a tutti e con estremo piacere sono qui con voi oggi. Nell'anno delle grandi elezioni ci siamo chiesti quale ruolo potessero e dovessero avere i brand su questo tema specifico e siamo andati a vedere se brand che si espongono su tematiche difficili, divisive, guadagnano oppure rimangono vittime della loro decisione e presa di posizione. Lo studio di cui oggi presento un estratto fa parte di un'indagine molto più ampia che noi conduciamo su 28 paesi da 24 anni e che va ad identificare quelli che sono i driver della fiducia. Questo estratto è un verticale sui brand su 15 paesi e lo stiamo facendo da 6 anni. In esclusiva lo realizziamo, lo presentiamo poi al Festival di Cannes. L'abbiamo presentato lì e lo ripresentiamo oggi per la seconda volta. La prima risposta alla domanda la visualizziamo proprio in questa slide. Il 64% dei democratici americani dichiara di essere più propenso a comprare dei brand che si espongono contro il razzismo e il 75% delle donne brasiliane comprano marche che si sono impegnate o si impegnano a migliorare l'accesso al sistema sanitario. Vediamo poi che il 71% degli intervistati chiede che i brand prendano posizione. Anche stare in silenzio è prendere posizione. E non prendere posizione o stare in silenzio non è detto che protegga dai rischi. Oggi infatti il tema non è più se succederà qualcosa, ma quando succederà qualcosa. Quindi i brand devono essere preparati. Di conseguenza il tema della fiducia nel brand diventa sempre più rilevante nel brand e nell'impresa a cui quel brand appartiene. I valori del brand diventano i comportamenti aziendali, le azioni aziendali e la fiducia nel brand oggi sta al terzo posto. Se vedete è un po' sceso il concetto di the brand that I love. Sta al terzo posto dopo il valore per il prezzo pagato e ovviamente la qualità che resta un fattore indiscusso. Con un più 5% cresce l'importanza nella fiducia nelle aziende a cui quel brand appartiene. Leggiamo quindi l'ideologia politica come cultura e identità e i brand siedono proprio nel bel mezzo. Possono unire perfetti sconosciuti, ma hanno anche la responsabilità di essere divisivi, perché i consumatori e gli stakeholder arrivano a giudicarsi e a scegliersi in base ai brand che vengono utilizzati. Si chiede quindi oggi ai brand di fare di più e c'è un dato molto interessante. I rispondenti dicono che riconoscono oggi in 8 brand su 10 questo impegno politico, perché ci sono brand che invitano ad andare a votare, oppure lo fanno scegliendo gli influencer e gli stakeholder con un determinato indirizzo, oppure usando certe piattaforme social e digitali, lavorando a fianco dei decisori politici nell'interesse della collettività. Nonostante questo, c'è la richiesta di maggior pressione, di prendere posizione più chiaramente su tematiche come clima, paghe migliori, equità di genere, formazione, correttezza dell'informazione. Ma perché esiste questa forte richiesta? Perché le persone credono nel potere dei brand, nella capacità di fare di più per cambiare il sistema, per una maggiore equità. I brand hanno oggi dei vantaggi, sono autentici, sono reali, conoscono bene le communities e la cultura di queste communities. Questo è il superpotere dei brand e c'è richiesta di agire e di condividere quello che viene fatto. Riconoscere questo superpotere ci porta a metà del cammino, l'altra metà è il coraggio dell'azione e questo coraggio arriva dalla chiarezza con cui si comprende e si definisce l'ambito di azione. Infatti, ogni brand ne ha uno e ogni mappa o spazio è unica. I valori fondanti del brand devono incontrare i valori degli stakeholder. È quello il momento in cui l'audience si aspetta che il brand agisca, prenda posizione rispetto al contesto politico e culturale nel quale entrambi sono. Il tutto per fare la differenza a beneficio della comunità e della società. E non è tanto importante quanto l'azione sia esterna e la pressione sia alta. A volte sono le piccole mosse che fanno la differenza. Si può iniziare dal cambiare qualcosa internamente, a livello organizzativo o di gestione. Il concetto della condivisione dei valori e della connessione emotiva non è certamente nuovo. Ciò che serve comprendere oggi è che il valore condiviso è la rampa di lancio per l'azione e la partecipazione. Qui vediamo quali sono le categorie che sono più sotto pressione, ma anche che davvero possono cambiare il mondo e fare la differenza. Tutte categorie vicine a noi come persone. Stiamo quindi parlando di no choice anymore e in questo risiede il mio invito a non indugiare. Il 59% degli intervistati si dichiara propenso a pagare di più un brand che agisce perché per lui è un brand di maggior valore. È una questione di impatto, di lasciare un segno. Questo dato è in salita rispetto all'anno precedente di 3 punti percentuali e è tra l'altro un dato che noi misuriamo da 6 anni e ogni anno aumenta. E cosa ci dice questo dato? Che oggi è il brand a fissare lo standard dei valori, delle azioni e dei comportamenti, non il contrario. Quindi massima attenzione nella scelta di influencer, ambassador e testimonial. Questo è valido soprattutto per le generazioni che stanno definendo oggi le loro scelte, come la generazione Z. Vedete infatti un più 11%. E cosa danno in cambio i consumatori e gli stakeholder, che oggi sono così demanding di fronte ai brand? Fedeltà d'acquisto, divulgazione del verbo, raccomandazioni agli altri, in un rapporto indissolubile di do-des. E le vulnerabilità personali e della società, non riesco a vedere, sì, e della società sono crescenti e pressanti. Queste stanno cambiando la domanda nei confronti dei brand. Laddove l'audience non si sente sicura e nemmeno rassicurata dal contesto, ecco che entra in gioco la richiesta di intervento da parte dei brand. È anche interessante notare come la generazione Z chieda anche ai brand di agire su quelle che sono le loro tensioni, anche dimostrando la vulnerabilità. Alla domanda quale brand è più attrattivo per te, la risposta è il brand che mi fa sentire safe and secure. Vedete quanto questo sia rilevante al crescere dell'età. Sono infatti le generazioni più mature che hanno un indice più alto. Ma quanto questo fenomeno cresca rapidamente nella generazione Z. E questa è la mia ultima slide che ci fa vedere bene l'influenza che i giovani hanno sulle altre generazioni. Ogni altra generazione guarda la generazione Z per settare la propria barra. Grazie.
Thank you for having your charts in English for me.
Pronto? Sì. Oh, now let's switch in English, and I'm super thrilled to have this opportunity to interview you on the scenario that I just presented, but of course I'm happy to have all your input. So I have 7 questions for you.
Okay, fair enough.
The first one is, what is your comment on brands' societal role?
Okay, the societal role of brands. Well, I guess the thing for me is that brands have been around for millennia. They're not a new phenomenon. You know, religions are arguably brands. And of course, as brands, they have their own symbols, their own branding. Many of them have the hand of God, whether it be the Hemsa hand or the Fatima hand in Islam or Miriam in Judaism. These were what I would call bottom-up brands, brands created by the people for the people. And those brands have been around for millennia. It's not really until the mid-19th century that we started to see top-down brands, brands owned by organizations, companies, corporations, where of course they're investing in their brands and they expect a return on their investment. So those top-down brands, really mid-19th century, as I say, and that's when we start seeing legislation come into countries around the world. France was first, followed by the UK, and indeed the very first brand to be trademarked was in the UK. It may not come as a surprise that the first brand trademarked in the UK was a beer, which was on the 1st of January 1876. And then for, 125 years, brands have been predominantly top-down until the 2010s, when things like our mobile phones, our smartphones became ubiquitous, as was the internet, the rise of social media, and that's when we really started to see the hashtag brands. And if you think about it, obviously there's been Me Too, Black Lives Matter, the Ice Bucket Challenge was another one. And these were all brands by the people, for the people. Gilets jaunes in France, rainbow flag, the clenched fist of Black Lives Matter. So, in my view, brands have been around in society, as I say, for millennia. We use them to create order to our everyday life. They're not just a capitalist tool.
Thanks for this clear explanation of the different brand position. So what suggestion would you give to companies?
I mean, I would give 2, probably not of any surprise to people in this room, but I would encourage brands to be authentic, obviously, and secondly, and very importantly, to be a consistent ally if they're going to be following and promoting a social cause. You know, as a gay man, when I grew up in the 1980s, I can tell you there were no brands, absolutely no brands, that would stand up for me, for gay rights, or, to be honest, probably any causes. Brands were so self-centered. And I'm delighted, of course, now that, you know, in Pride Month in June, we see all sorts of companies promoting the values of LGBTQ plus culture and society, and I think that's great news. You know, you can buy everything from sandwiches to mouthwash. I saw a campaign for one of these brands. It was for, I brought them in, a pack of Skittles, famous for their rainbow colours, of course. And they ran a campaign this year which was saying that they were going to take the colour out of their packaging, out of the sweets, out of their communications, because they didn't want to detract from the only rainbow that mattered. Now, I'm not sure I think that's a fantastic campaign, but you know what I'm pleased about is that we now have the chance to critique LGBTQ plus campaigns, and that's fabulous. So it's moving the needle somewhat, even if they're imperfect. You know, there are other people, other brands, Lego and their Rebuild the World campaign, which is bringing in a new generation of builders and architects. And of course, that's fabulous for Lego, isn't it? They're all about creativity, all about education, and it certainly fits with their brand values. Just one final thing on this topic, because I saw people were talking about misinformation. Super important that we all have our role to play in this area. You know, even if we're not communicating, a brand should have a misinformation policy. Is it adhering to its policy? Is it updating that policy given the dynamic change of misinformation? So there are a couple of thoughts for you.
So authenticity, consistency, and ability to take a stand. Thank you.
Absolutely.
What are the key elements for a brand's success today?
To be honest, I think they're the same as they've ever been. It's about having positive, relevant differentiation. You know, if you have that, then that's great. If you don't, then your brand is going to fail. You know, one of my first jobs, I worked at Saatchi & Saatchi in London. I was very lucky to work on the Procter & Gamble account for their biggest brand, Pampers. Not Pampers, sorry, Ariel, the washing detergent. And by the time I was working on Ariel in the 1990s, Ariel had been in the UK for 30 years, had brought innovation after innovation to the detergent market, but we were promoting it as best ever Ariel. And, you know, this year's best ever Ariel was better than last year's best ever Ariel. And consumers were finding that not so convincing or plausible. Roll forward to 2024, I was in the US a couple of weeks ago, and I saw a great campaign for Persil, the competitor of Ariel. And now what they're doing, they had done was they promoted their brand on a 24-hour TikTok live stream. They had a young fashion designer who hosted a 24-hour phone-in, so people could phone in, and his hotline was all about how clothes last longer. And he was offering advice on how to refresh people's wardrobe. And this was because Persil was holding a stand against fast fashion. So, you know, that trend of us being able to buy clothes and throw them away very quickly. And so Persil were doing this on TikTok. They got 600,000 viewers in 24 hours. 600 people phoned in. A great example of a brand doing what they've always needed to do, positive differentiation.
Thanks, interesting. And maybe Persil helped raise the debate.
I hope so.
On the
Yeah,
fast
absolutely.
fashion. In your opinion, what defines the space within which a brand can act today?
So obviously your charts gave us some clues, but for me, the space that a brand can act in is it obviously has to be profitable, because brands are all about profit. The second is that it must be true to the brand. And the third is that it must have the right to speak on a particular topic. Let me give you an example. So let's take a brand that's all about care, and I'm thinking of Pampers, the diaper, the nappy brand Pampers. They're all about care, and they've taken up a social cause which is about caring for future generations. And I'm sure all of us would think that that is a good connection. They've earned the right to talk about future generations and caring for them. You know, if they came to us and they had a campaign on environmental issues, we wouldn't buy it, would we? So you have to have earned the right to have that conversation. I guess just like that Purcell example, very profitable, I'm sure, for Purcell, totally on brand, clothes last longer. And the third thing is that they'd earned the right to talk about fast fashion. So there are some thoughts.
And thanks for bringing at the table the concept of profitability of brands, as Laura did during the opening speech, because brands cannot do anything if they're not profitable.
No, absolutely.
How do you see the future of brand ambassadors in today's context? Will become increasingly challenging?
Brand ambassadors, I think if anybody's ever worked with a brand's ambassador, they know how challenging it can be. I don't know if it's going to become even more challenging, but certainly with brand ambassadors, there are two things, aren't there? One is they have to be absolutely right for the brand, not just in the eyes of the brand owner, but in the eyes of the consumer of the brand as well. And I'll come back to that in a moment. The second thing is you need to have a disaster plan. You need to probably have an Edelman up your sleeve, ready to help you get out of trouble if your brand ambassador goes, let's call it, off-brand. In whatever way they might do so. So that's really important. Let's talk about an example. I don't know if people are familiar with the one in the US recently for Bud Light, the beer. They had a situation where a boycott was called, their brand sales slipped. And it all started because someone on their team sent a transgender influencer. She had 10 million followers, a pack of personalized cans that had her face on it, and then she did a 1-minute promotion of this fact that she'd been sent them. She was very proud, and it was to do with a Mad March giveaway, $15,000. Well, the fallout was, to be honest, horrific. The people who were campaigning against transgender rights in the US called a boycott. It became national news. Their sales slumped. Anheuser-Busch, who owned the brand, their share price, they lost 27 billion off of their market capitalization, which is just unbelievable. And clearly something had gone wrong. Now, let me be very clear. For me, the influencer had done no wrong. What had gone wrong there was someone at the brand had not thought about, is this right in the eyes of our consumer? So that's where I think they had gone wrong. They've now done a new advertising campaign comparing Bud Light's values with those of Middle America, and they've got a talking horse promoting the brand. I'm not sure a talking horse is that great either, but that's what they've got. You know, there's an example. You've got to think about in the eyes of your consumer, is it a good thing? By the way, AI and virtual reality for ambassadors are going to become even bigger than they currently are. Of course, they don't have adulterous relationships. They don't embezzle funds. They're available 24 hours a day. They're on message. And of course, with data, they can be personalized down to the individual that they're speaking to. Will consumers find them genuine and credible? We've yet to see. I think the future will tell.
And why is it important for consumers and brands to constantly engage in dialogue?
Well, I think there's obvious reasons why a brand wants to invest in a dialogue. It helps them win customers, it retains customers, it grows loyalty, you can cross-sell to them, you can upsell to them, it reduces churn, all of those reasons why a brand wants to do it. Why does a consumer want it? I was reading a survey the other day by Sprout Social, and they were saying that 70% of respondents found that they had a closer connection with the brand if they read posts from the CEO or members of the staff showing behind the curtain of what happens at the company. And even higher proportion, 76%, wanted brands to bring people together. Not necessarily like-minded people, people of different opinions. And so that's one reason. The other reason is if you as a brand don't have relationships with your consumers, influencers will. And I know there's been some conversation of influencers, and I know in Italy, Chiara Ferragni has a lot of history in Italy. But this year I've had a great opportunity to meet two expert groups of influencers. My company, the Great Pitch Company, we were helping an agency in the UK, a big media agency, on 2 pitches. I'm pleased they won, I can tell you, Fiorella. But I met these groups of, thank you, I met these groups of influencers in the beauty sector and the technology sector, and I was bowled away. They were so knowledgeable, professional, they were clear about their brand, they were clear about the brands and how they should interact with other people's brands in an authentic way. They're going to grow, there's no doubt about that, across generations and command an ever bigger share of the marketing budget.
And this is my final question. In what way is empathy a crucial element in these interactions?
Well, empathy is what we all want, isn't it? So empathy creates unbreakable bonds. The empathy allows you to go deeper, to create trust, loyalty, even fandoms within a brand. If you want to do it as a company, what you should do is show people behind the curtain, show them about your brand, how it's made, show behind the scenes. Secondly, you should encourage user-generated content because consumers know your brand better than anyone else. And the third thing is that you should respond quickly and openly to any issues. I'm going to finish on one story very quickly, which is my first ever job. I worked for Kellogg's, and I was in their sales force spreading the good word of Kellogg's around the UK in supermarkets and wholesalers. That was our main job. But the second thing we did was support the telephone hotline. And they received a call one particular day at 5 o'clock. This lady, she was unable to get Kellogg's Raisin Splits, her favorite cereal. And so overnight I got a message to go to a nearby shop to persuade them to sell Kellogg's Raisin Splits, which I did at 9 o'clock. And at 10 o'clock the next morning, I knocked on her door and said, "Hello, I'm from Kellogg's." She almost fainted. Was bowled over by this customer service, and I'm sure she's still speaking about this story now as I am. It's a great example of empathy.
Yeah, this is a good practice we should recall and re-put in our daily life. I want to thank you, Marcus, because I'm finishing this interview with a lot of food for thought. You have been so generous in giving us your brain, the name of some good stories and cases, etc. And I'm sure that the audience is sharing it with me.
Thank you very much indeed, and thank you for allowing me to speak English. Thank you.
Grazie, grazie. We don't have so much time, but I'd like to ask a couple of questions for you. One for you and one for Fiorella. Fiorella, a proposito del tuo impegno, vi rubo soltanto 2 minuti, il tuo impegno sul tema della leadership, poi ne parleremo poco, ho appena visto arrivare Mircea Cartiadasero, il CEO del Sole 24 Ore, e insieme col professor Latore tra poco parleremo di leadership, e di empowerment e di tutt'altro. Vorrei chiederti proprio anche la velocità con cui i brand stanno andando dietro la società, no? A proposito del ruolo della donna. Tu hai un impegno in prima linea su questo tema. Una velocissima
Sì, veloce. Allora, la velocità è proprio un termine che setta in qualche modo la capacità dei brand di continuare a resistere e rinnovarsi. Per cui non sempre è facile, non sempre è possibile, il contesto esterno cambia veramente molto velocemente, ma io vedo le aziende impegnate su questo fronte, quindi sono molto fiduciosa.
E questa è una buona notizia. Grazie Fiorella. Last question for you. I'd like to spotlight the importance of a team's agency. How important, Marcus, is to have a positive team and confident team to succeed?
Oh, my goodness. You know, so we spend all our day working...
Only 1 minute for you.
Okay. We spend all our day working with agencies, helping them to win new clients. And I can tell you there is a huge correlation between agencies that have happy teams and teams that work well together and their ability to win pitches. So having a team that's happy and contented and motivated is absolutely the right thing to do.
Happy pitch teams is a successful pitch teams.
Happy pitch teams are definitely successful pitch teams, that's for sure.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Have
you
a nice
very
time
much
here in
indeed.
Milan.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
It was a
indeed.
pleasure to meet you here.
Thank you, Fiorella.
Grazie Fiorella, grazie molte, grazie.